Busher shoots. Hit with 3 seconds to go. 2 seconds. 1 second. West throws it up. He makes it. West threw it up and makes it. Over half court. The ball game is tied. Jerry West made it from the other side of the...
Hello, welcome to our Basketball Time Machine. It's episode 2 of the Basketball Time Machine. Last time we did Dr. J, Julie Serving. A lot of research we're going into that one. And today we're going into someone from a similar era, just a little bit earlier, Jerry West. We're going to be talking about Jerry West today. I have Adam Shalfu and Bill Shalfu here as well. It's very exciting because, we always see Jerry West in the limelight, and he's not the guy who particularly likes the spotlight, but he's very introspective, like a lot of wisdom coming out of his mouth.
Yeah. It's a good point, Hami. First of all, super excited to have my dad on for the first time as a podcast. We've done some radio together, but first time having him on as a podcast, and that really ties into Jerry West, because the reason we're having him on is we embark on our basketball time travel. This is a guy who actually got to see him in person and has seen a lot of the change that maybe he helped stimulate. And maybe he was a part of as far as being a huge influence for the game. Obviously wound up becoming the NBA logo, or his likeness, rather. So welcome on, Dad.
Thank you. I'm really thrilled and glad to be on. I saw Jerry West when I was 6 months old. My mom's holding me and stuff, but I really was watching the game. No, actually, I'm blessed to have seen Jerry when I was 11 years old in the NBA playoffs. I believe it was Game 5, and the Bulls took the game. I think it was 110, 120. Pretty high-scoring game for not the three-pointers back then. As I did my research. And I also saw him in the NBA All-Star game.
Number 44, Jerry West. And it's a 6-4 lead for the East. The West with the ball, and that's Jerry West to the Lakers. Feeds it back to Gail Goodrich, who is right over.
So thanks again, guys. I appreciate being on.
Well, that's really cool that you saw him at the All-Star game. Now, I know that was his last season of his career, but what was something that kind of stood out to you in terms of him playing at the All-Star game and just him kind of seeing him up close?
Yeah, first of all, there were so many celebrities. I remember going around getting autographs of just about, Hot Rod Huntley. I don't know if you guys know that name, but he was there. I got his autograph and tried to get some other guys, but didn't. But anyway, it was very thrilling to be there, and then just watching the starting lineups and the announcing. Jerry West. It was just a ton of talent. So even at that age, I knew how blessed I was to having seen Jerry West. Just because, I'm the youngest of 7 and 3 older brothers, and I certainly knew who he was and the impact he made in the game.
Have Jerry West probably get it, and he's going to try to go all the way, most likely.
8 seconds. 6, 5, 4, 3,
2 points.
2. It's over!
You can see that coming. You know he's going to get the 2.
So Jerry West, who hit the basket with 1 second to go to win it for the West, 112 to 110, is the most valuable player in the ball game. Jerry West. Walter Kennedy comes onto the floor, the commissioner of the NBA, to make the trophy presentation to the most valuable player. Jerry West with 13 points. He stole the ball 6 times. He scored 7 points in the fourth quarter, and he hit the basket that won the ball game for the West, 112 to 110. Now the series stands 14 wins for the East, 8 wins for the West. So a man named West.
And then going even earlier than that, just like I guess him as a kid, I think he grew up in West Virginia,
Right.
And Zeke from Cabin Creek is like his nickname, but he's not really from Cabin Creek. It's like the town next door, I think. But I was kind of looking at a lot of articles and just like Wikipedia and that kind of stuff. But one thing that like really stood out that all those articles things had in common is that the long hours practicing his jump shot, like the quick release and that kind of thing. And because when you see him shoot, it's like it's very beautiful. It's like a very like
Mhm.
it's pretty much how coaches would teach you how to shoot, right? Just like the perfect form.
The jump shot has done more to revolutionize basketball than any other single offensive move. It gives the offensive player a tremendous advantage over the defensive player. The element of surprise is always with the offensive player. The defensive player never knows when you're going to shoot.
I agree with what you're saying about the form. Honestly, going into it, I knew he was a legend. I thought, all right, well, he'll probably be pretty good, but I don't know if he would, be good enough to make too much of an impact now, just because people are so much bigger and more athletic. And I think I was wrong. I mean, just one of the first things I noticed was that quick release. Always seems to be shooting off the dribble, and he played in a super physical era. And so this guy was taking some big hits and shooting with contact, shooting in traffic. And we'll get into the comparisons a little bit more later. But really, I think that style fits today's game. A lot of guys are able to have a lot of success in the league by getting to the line and creating their own shots, especially some of these combo guards like Jerry was.
Also, like, I mean, guys like in the league now, like T.J. McConnell. He's a pretty good player, right? He's like, what is he? He's very short. He's like 6'1", 6'2".
Mm-hmm.
Jerry West, he's 6'3", 6'4", and he has like a 6'9" wingspan.
Yeah.
So I don't get this talk of people saying like he's not going to last in today's league because they just see like just some white guy with a nice haircut, who has a good jump shot.
Yeah.
And the thing is that he was like the first thing I noticed, and I watched like a video of him a couple of years ago, not like a couple videos, because he's very open about like his depression and that kind of thing, and I thought this is very interesting. I want to see what Jerry West is. I want to learn more about him a little bit. This was like 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And him being with the Warriors and stuff like that, he'd be kind of in the spotlight sometimes. And then that report came out about the Kevin Love trade, that rumor trade, that came out like 3 years ago, right? Something like that.
Yeah,
When Klay Thompson was playing really well at one point, and something like that came out.
Well, yeah.
So,
explain for the people who don't know what you're talking about here.
So yeah, basically the Warriors had a trade on the table. I think it was with the Timberwolves, right? Trading Kevin Love and Klay Thompson to basically be a swap, and then maybe like a pick in there somewhere. But everyone was almost on board. It seemed like with the Golden State Warriors, except for Jerry West. And Jerry West is, again, he doesn't like to be in the spotlight. And I heard him talk about something like this too, that he doesn't like telling people what to do and that kind of thing. But he said he had to jump in there. Like he had to jump in and say like, no, we got to keep Klay Thompson and we got to run with this identity. And basically 3 years later, they were NBA champions.
And there's a player on the Warriors who reminds me a lot of Jerry West.
Yeah, this guy right here. Yes.
Yeah, there he is. And so, Dad, we'll save you for last here, but Hami, why don't you get us started? Like, what? Break down his game. What were your impressions? We did, hours of looking at full games or extended highlights of this guy. Everything from defense, offense, assists, shooting. What are your impressions?
Well, people always talk about this thing about like, the intangibles, right? Like the will to win and that kind of stuff, a hustle. Jerry West had literally like everything, like into all the intangibles and all the hustle plays, all like the little like tip passes, that kind of thing. He's always like tipping pass. He's so active in every facet of the game, at least what I've noticed. And I also noticed this is one other thing too, where there's this thing that people on Twitter and stuff like that, they're calling a LeBron stat line, which is like 27, 7, and 7.
Okay.
Jerry West has more LeBrons than LeBron himself. Like he actually has like more games with that actual stat line, like 27, 7, and 7. And mind you, this is without a 3-point line, and this is on very good efficiency too. But I remember Adam, we were watching this one video about how someone was kind of breaking down his stats and saying like, if there was a 3-point line, he like that 45% would be like 50%, like 2-pointers, and then maybe like 39-40% from three, right?
Yeah.
Like he was that good at shooting. He's Mr. Outside, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I also mentioned like the play style. First thing I noticed, so competitive, such a great leader, just like on the court. Like I know this is like kind of a slight comparison. Now I'm not going to compare him to Harden because Harden is so different. But like in terms of, I see the Harden comparison in terms of like, let's give the ball to Jerry and let's see what he can do. Let's give him a point. Let's see if we can get some points for us. Like that's the only way, because like he'd always be one dribble pull up. Like very similar to Michael Jordan.
And this sort of turn here, and bang, ball fade. Yep. Down with the back. Okay. Or just go up. Okay. Right here.
Yep. Yep.
No one in the NBA can stop that.
To Jordan, right side. Michael's pull-up shot. Good.
Yeah.
There's like that one video back to back. Michael Jordan and Jerry West highlights just back to back.
Yeah.
It's very amazing to see. And like I'll go a little bit deeper into like this argument I've been having with a friend about Jerry West's impact in the league. And my friend obviously thinks that he's one of those plumbers or whatever whatever the kids call them these days. But I was trying to tell him like, no, dude, like Jerry West was actually really fucking good.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't just like like it's one thing if you think of like Bob Cousy, who was like he had like kind of a weird dribbling. And this is another thing too. I know I'm going all over the place, but he the ball on top of the hand on top of the ball, not on the side or anything, right? That's otherwise you'd be called for carrying or palming.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Jerry West had the perfect dribbling, and then so these days his handle would be better.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man, you kind of mentioned the Michael Jordan thing, and that's the big thing I noticed is like, wow, this guy is doing a lot of familiar moves.
Okay, do this one. Drive down here. Drive down here. Take this one here.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
There's not a player in the NBA can stop that.
Nope. Doesn't matter. You got to hope, man.
But again, it's the last dribble, Harrison. It does it. That hard dribble.
Short to the fadeaway. Michael Jordan baseline, 1 point.
And one of the themes we've seen in the Basketball Time Machine so far is like, oh, wow, it looks like, this guy might have got that from him, or this guy might have gotten that from him, or whatever. And the way he controls the ball and protects the ball with his body, he'll get you on his back a lot like Jordan would and Kobe would with that post-up game. And then if you blink, he's already gone baseline on you.
If you blink, the ball's already released.
Yeah, he's already turned. Much like Steph Curry, the shot release is so quick. I saw a little Trae Young in that too. Just a quick decision maker. You mentioned the competitiveness. That's like an intangible, but we watched the last 30 seconds of what was it, the 68 finals?
I think it was a 68. It might have been 66 or 68.
Yeah.
It was one of those
One
finals.
of the
I think,
Lakers-Celtics finals. And
was it a Game 7? It might have been a Game 7 because it was really tense and he was so
Celtics,
like desperate.
Yeah, Celtics go up 10 points with 30 seconds left, and West forces a turnover, gets a steal.
Two quick shots and a steal and then like a tip pass, that kind of thing.
Gets assists. They wind up losing that game by 2 points. Because of Jerry West just going absolutely bonkers. And so he is one of those guys that plays with fury. We kind of had a pre-production meeting about this podcast / YouTube video. We decided we're not going to go too much into his troubled past, but this is a guy who's gone through a lot of stuff personally. And he even admits to playing with some of that anger. And you can kind of see a furious style when you see him play, how aggressive he is, how badly he wants to win. And it's an energy you either have or you don't. And a guy who, put that on display recently would be like Jimmy Butler, where you're like, damn, this guy's playing his ass off, And so Jerry plays his ass off. He's a super skilled scorer. I think the biggest thing that surprised me, I knew all this about him being a great scorer and everything, and I knew that he was a good defender. He was all defensive team for every year. He was eligible for that. But this dude is like a defensive monster. like one of the best, most annoying, pestering defenders I've ever seen on film. And so just absolutely incredible to see just how hard he plays on both sides of the floor, I guess.
Well, speaking of that one game, and I want to get Bill's thoughts on some of this too. But that one game, that final 30 seconds, remember that when he took the ball away from Bill Russell?
Yeah.
That was unbelievable.
Yeah.
He literally just snatched it from him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was looking at the film as well, and I thought of John Stockton.
Ooh.
So not modern day, a few years back. And so I'm looking at Stockton, the way he handles the ball, and like you said, it would be called for palming or the ball with it's a straight up dribble with complete command of the ball. So he's spinning in the lane, and he's not doing any of the fancy dribbling that they can do nowadays. Just a straight up dribble, protecting the ball with his body, like Adam said, and going to the hole tough. Kind of like Stockton did. And so I'm looking at the stats, and I think he's not as tall, Hami. I don't think he's 6'4". Maybe you could check that, Adam, see how
so he claims that he's a little taller than he's listed.
I want to know how you averaged 13 rebounds a game in college as a 6'2" guard. It's incredible.
Well, I'm really not 6'2". I'm 6'4.5". And I have about a 40-inch sleeve length. So, and I was an athlete. I could run. Basketball's a game of anticipation, quickness, how your mind is wired. And I was,
okay.
So he said,
so does everybody else.
Right. Yeah. I'm 6'6".
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And you're not an inch over 6'4".
Yeah, and that makes you a good 7'2".
So I'm looking at that and I'm like, okay, field goal percentage. We talked about he's at 47. Stockton was at 51. Stockton had 19,000 points. Jerry West 25,000 points. So it's not like their stats are that way, but I think Stockton had an incredible will to win and was also tough as nails. Yeah. And then I'm looking at, it's like, according to the stats I read, it gave Stockton at 6'1", 174 pounds. Mm-hmm. Jerry West at 6'2", 174 pounds. Okay. I fucking nailed it. I said, that guy is the exact same weight as Jerry West. John Stockton. That's who it is. So, it's just, it was real fun looking at the old clips. I really enjoyed that. The links you guys sent me.
Yeah, the research definitely is, I'd say, like, just as fun as the podcast part of this, kind of going back and checking these guys out.
Yeah.
Well, now we're going to dive into what we talked a little bit about the play style, but I guess just like more about his career. I guess some of his best moments, right? Right. Everyone talks about probably the greatest. One of the greatest shots in NBA Finals history, just the buzzer beater from half court.
Lakers trying to pressure the inbounds pass, and it comes into Walt Frazier with 10 seconds now showing on the clock. 8 seconds left to go on the clock. 7, 6, 5. DeBusschere shoots. Hit with 3 seconds to go. 2 seconds. 1 second. West throws it up. He makes it. West threw it up and makes it. Over half court. The ball game is tied. Jerry West made it from the other side of the midcourt stripe.
I actually just saw a video now of someone on 2K trying to recreate that moment where they just kept trying to throw half-court shots with Jerry West, like from the exact same spot, and see how many tries it would take for him to make it finally. It took about 40 tries, but there was a lot of them in between that was like just went in and out, and I was very close. So that's one thing for the 2K people I think that they should add is that make him like unstoppable from half-court in like the last 5 seconds.
Yeah, it's going in.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had one, I think, in the All-Star game we watched. And then
the buzzer beater, yeah.
Yeah, and then one against the Knicks. And, it just goes to say, because that one forced overtime against the Knicks in the finals. But this is before the three-point line. They called him, as you said, Mr. Outside. And so, how much better he'd be with that 3-point shot, because he clearly would be shooting above the Mendoza line on that. And for me, that's around 33. And so he'd be shooting over 33%. He'd be a guy you want taking those shots. And the difficulty of some of these like pull-up jumpers from the top of the key, you know, you take another step back, you're behind the 3-point line. He's got that in his game.
Yeah, and if you look at and it's to compare, like, oh, if there was a 3, and so let's, you know, do a computer analysis and every shot that a guy took past the 3-point line, and you really can't do that comparison, obviously.
Right.
Because the game was quicker then, and I don't mean quicker as in the players were quicker, but the teams would move the ball up quick, and what they would do is they would try to work the ball for the highest percentage shot.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no reason to, you know, let's throw it to the guy almost out of bounds so he can shoot. It's still 2 points. Whether you dump it into Dave Cowens or, you know, Will Chamberlain, still 2 points. So I agree. I do think that he would have stepped back a little bit and he would have gotten that 3. And his assists probably would have grown too by bringing the ball down the court and being able to hit the guy at the wing behind the 3, hitting Gail Goodrich or, you know, some of his other teammates that could shoot the lights out.
Yeah, and I think you'd have a lot more space too in today's game because
would have. You're right.
You know, you'd be able to. You look at those old clips, and it's a little more clustered because, like you said, they're looking for higher percentage shots, but today, especially you look at a team like the Houston Rockets where they want all 5 guys being able to slash. He'd be able to, I think, really destroy people off the dribble in today's era. And then that would create a lot more opportunities on the outside. Basically, I'm saying he'd be able to do a lot of the things that, you know, Damian Lillard and Steph Curry are able to do because of the space that they create and because of the era they're playing in. Which really goes to say that Jerry West was maybe a few decades ahead of his time as far as the skills he has go.
Yeah, and there's also you know, you mentioned that one play with you know, where Jerry West, he often posts up and he kind of turns and shoots. And he turns around the other way and shoots. Steph Curry does that like twice a game, you know, for every shot. It's really incredible how the similarities between both of those guys.
Yeah, 5-time all defensive team. I just wanted to put that out there because with the long arms, I see a little bit of Rondo too on the defensive side, because Rondo's about, you know, 6'1" with that, you know, 6'9" wingspan, and West got really long arms and some of these athletic defensive plays where he's able to jump up and steal a pass out of the midair and then either get it quickly ahead for an assist or, you know, go make something happen himself. It's just the instincts and athleticism on display are otherworldly.
All right, yeah. So the big thing is that, of course, obviously, another thing that's like only that he has done is obviously winning the Finals MVP on the losing team.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned about this like a couple of years ago when I did like my research of Jerry West, like, you know, not related to this, but just like when I was curious, that they actually voted on it before the game. He had such an amazing series that they're like, you know, they voted him before the game. But the thing is that Jerry West, what makes him such a winner, despite being 1-9 in the finals, there's a 1-8 in the finals. What makes him such a winner is that he hates being reminded of that, of being the Finals MVP on the losing team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, talking about how he won't step foot in Boston. It was weird. We were watching the interview. What was I can't remember the guy's name who was interviewing
Graham Bensinger.
Yeah, the Graham Bensinger.
A whole playlist.
Yeah, a whole bunch of interviews. And you can see the pain in his face. It looks like he's going to cry. You know, he's talking about stuff that happens, you know, 50, 60 years ago, and it is still that painful for him.
Yeah. Now, I actually want to ask Bill, like, what was how like in terms of people like the Celtics-Lakers rivalry, in terms of like being a neutral fan, I guess, what was kind of like the like which side would you lean towards, I guess, or like maybe your peers or something like that?
Yeah. That's an interesting question because I don't want to sound like the old guy, but I am the old guy. And you mentioned 2K, and it's so cool. I remember, Adam, watching him play in video games and just how going in back into time, so he could go play the 70 Lakers against the 85 Bulls or something like that. But when I was playing, when we play basketball, there are obviously no video games, and I would play by myself, and I would always be the Bulls, but I would either be the Lakers or the Celtics. And so I would be dribbling, and then I would pass it to myself, and then, pass over to Happy Hairston, to Goodrich, to West, and actually run to get the ball and pass. And then my best friend, he would always be the Celtics. And a lot of times I would either be the Bulls or the Lakers. And the same thing, when we're playing one-on-one, you were allowed to pass the ball to yourself. Mm-hmm. And that was legal. But you couldn't just pass it. You'd have to announce and say, West dribbling down, passes over to Goodrich, and then you would have to run and get the ball. And so anyway, I don't know if kids play like that anymore, but it was a hell of a lot of fun. But we knew those were the two teams that we knew all the players on. I mean, we knew some Knicks, obviously the other stars in the league, but we could, those two teams, watching them play it was incredible. And we could go down, and certainly list deep into the depth charts of both those teams. They're amazing to watch.
Yeah, I definitely have played something like that when I was a kid. Just kind of like,
for the record,
Jay Williams to, giving it to what's his name, Marcus Pfizer, back to Rick Brunson, top of the key.
What did you only play basketball in the year 2001?
That's how it started. Yeah. Oh, then I had Iverson, of course, on the Bulls. Why not, right?
Yeah. Right on. We're getting close to wrapping things up here, though. But yeah, how good do you think this guy would be today?
I think he would make he's an all-star. I'm gonna throw that down.
Yeah,
I think he would adjust, to the game today. Like you say, the floor would be opened up, and he would be shooting threes, and the legend would live on.
There you go.
Yeah, I think his stats would actually be pretty similar. Like his all-time stats, it looks like it's 27, 5.8 rebounds, and 6.7 assists. I think it'd be very similar to that. Maybe instead of 27, it'd be like 24, 25.
I think he'd be super dangerous. And then also hearing him talk about how officiating is different today versus when he played, he talked about how in the 60s it was dirty. He said it wasn't just physical, it was dirty. And so a lot of the things that are called today as flagrants might not even be called as a foul.
Play on.
Yeah.
It's like you just sawed your knee off. Play on.
Come
Go
on,
ahead.
He talks.
Come on, you pansy.
Yeah.
So what? Your lips bleeding. Jeez.
Yeah. Rub some dirt on it.
Now there's blood, and it's like the whole place shuts down.
They have to send everyone home. But I think that he would get to the free throw line a ton. And I think that there's some aspects of today's game that would really make him look even better. I don't think he would be the best player in the league, like you could make the case for him being for most of his career. But I think that he would be a top 10 player. I think that he'd be he can't shoot the ball like Steph Curry, but he's somebody who would hit a lot of threes. He's somebody who could play either guard position, and I think he'd thrive. Yeah, I think he'd thrive. I think he'd be a perennial all-star in today's game still.
Yeah, still be a great defender.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, especially now, like it's all like about team defense now. Yeah. It's all about like helping out and stuff like that on defense. So he'd be perfect for that, and diving for loose balls and stuff like that. What about the 2K playability?
Ooh, the 2K playability, and I just want to add, he'd be a lot better defender than some of the guys who are big stars now. He'd be a much better defender frankly, Steph Curry or James Harden. He'd be one of the
James
best
Harden.
defenders in the league. Now they might be a little more similar offense with the ability to score off the bounce. Now, as far as 2K playability goes, I mean, 2K, they don't do the homework that we do. All right, let's make that clear. Whoever's doing the ratings, they don't do as much homework as we do here at Hoopstradamus because they'll.
What is his rating?
I think it's like a 97 or something like that, 98,
Wow.
97. It's really good, but they got him pretty souped up. You can have a lot of fun with him. I would use him like you use Damian Lillard. I wouldn't really try to go in for too many dunks, but find space on the outside, be an aggressive scoring first guard, but also – he can make some dimes. And then on the other end of the floor, I'd use him like you use Patrick Beverly or Rajon Rondo because he's just a hound on the ball.
Any final thoughts about Jerry West in general from anyone? Anything you guys want to say about him? Just about like his legend and, just about how his career as a player mostly. And even you guys can go a little bit into the post.
I think we would have to do a whole separate podcast. He's arguably the best executive of all time, so maybe a part 2 coming. But we would not have Michael Jordan without Jerry West, and so I'm going to put that out there. That's one of the biggest takeaways I had is watching the film, and especially as you mentioned, the highlights of West doing a move and then footage of Jordan doing the exact same move. You don't have Jerry West, Michael Jordan without Jerry West, and you don't have Kobe Bryant without Michael Jordan. And you probably don't have a lot of those guys we have today, Devin Booker, whatever, you name it, without Kobe. And so he was extremely important in his influence, and that's why he deserves to be the logo.
Yeah, well, one of the things I learned today is I didn't realize he got the MVP and was on the losing team. And I can see how pissed off he would be when people bring that up. Because as we discussed early on, all of us, is his will to win and his desire to win. And it's like, he doesn't want his name associated anything but losing, he'd rather have split those series or taken every one from the Celtics and trade that MVP in any day.
Even just one championship against the Celtics, I think it would have meant the world to him.
Yeah. He might step one foot into Boston now.
Just stand in place and wouldn't.
Yeah, right.
Same spot where he'd lifted the trophy, probably.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's going to do it. One thing I wanted to mention, one last thing, is that, you look at like the styles of personalities, right, in today's league. You have guys like Steph Curry, who's like very, when they play, they're very like joyful, it seems like, when they're playing. And guys like Damian Lillard, where he's kind of has always a chip on his shoulder. And I think we'd all agree that Jerry West is kind of more like Damian Lillard, the latter there, where, he finds like the motivation from within. And, like,
plays mean.
Yeah, and like that makes him very relatable too, and that's why I love Jerry West. And I'm always I'm gonna read his autobiography soon, and I'm really much looking forward to it. But regardless, that's gonna do it for this edition of the Basketball Time Machine, episode 2. Check out our other one about Dr. J. That was a very good one too, very fun. But that's gonna do it. Thanks to Jerry West, and thanks to Bill Shalko and Adam Shalko for joining me. I'm Hami Rain, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.